Hey friends, how's it going? My name is Gabby, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be starting another thriller and horror reading vlog. This reading vlog went a little bit off the rails because I got COVID, you know, like things didn't go exactly to plan. The original plan for this vlog was that I was going to be reading a bunch of backlist thrillers that I've had on my TBR for a really long time, and for the most part, it still is that, because I was able to get to quite a few backlist thrillers that I've had on my, TBR for a long time, which include The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier is the first book that I read in this video, and then I also do read Take It Back and The Damage, but then I also, just on top of that, there was a few books that I DNF'd throughout this video, and I also decided to include a new horror release in this reading vlog, which is the book Mary by Nat Cassidy. That is a new release horror book that I did read for this video as well, so it's kind of a chaotic all over the place reading vlog, but honestly, what else do you expect from me, like that is just what you're here for. So I hope you enjoy, and let me send you back to when I started with The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier. Hello, I have started on The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier, and as of right now, I am 116 pages into this book. I was just gonna try like the first couple of chapters of this book to see how I felt about it, and then I freaking got sucked in. I immediately just got sucked into this book. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for a while, because Jennifer Hillier is my freaking queen. And in this book, it's very interesting because we're following this man named Edward Shank, who 30 years ago, he was a police officer, and he's the one who hunted down the freaking butcher, which is this, Beacon Hill butcher. This all takes place in Seattle, by the way, which is really cool, because I live in Washington. He was the one who hunted down and took down Seattle's most famous and notorious serial killer in the 80s, right? And now, 30 years later, he's retired, and he's having to give up his home because he's going to be going and living in a retirement home. So he's giving his home to his grandson named Matt, and Matt is he's kind of a douchebag, not gonna lie. He's kind of a douchebag, and he owns a lot of restaurants and a lot of food trucks, and he's got some anger management issues, you know what I'm saying? And then Matt is dating this girl named Sam, or Samantha, and she is a writer, and she's been writing all these true crime books, and her current project that she's working on is The Butcher, and she wants to write about the Beacon Hill butcher and all of those things. And it's really interesting because right at the start of this book, after Matt inherits Edward's house, he discovers a family secret, something that he's not sure if he should know, and then it opens up this whole web of lies with secrets in his family. And it's really interesting because all of the men are gross and slimy in this book. Oh my god, reading from their point of view makes me ugh. But then also it's fascinating because we get the point of view of not only the butcher in this book, we get the point of view of Matt, the grandson, who kind of has a temper, and then we also get the point of view of Sam, the girlfriend, as she's kind of writing this true crime novel about the butcher and trying to put together all of the pieces. I just think this book is very fascinating so far. I've already tabbed so many moments that I've personally found to be kind of surprising. I love that this book has really short chapters and that they're just flying so far. I'm flying through the pages, and it's 11:15 at night right now, and I'm actually planning on staying up a little bit tonight to read some of this because I'm so invested already, and because right where I just finished off, at the end of chapter 11, there was already another, mind-blowing thing happening that I'm oh my god. I'm just having so much fun with this, I feel like this book is giving major, kind of Dexter vibes in a way, just because of the way they're talking about, the Beacon Hill butcher. It's very, Dexter vibes in that sense, but I love that it takes place in Seattle, because it just makes it feel more fun. I recognize a lot of the places they're talking about in this book because, I've been to Seattle, so that's really cool. But yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it so far, even more than I thought I would. And also, I'm absolutely obsessed with the size of this book, this cute little mass market paperback. It's just so cute, and it's so much smaller from what I typically read. So I just love, holding it in my hands. But anyways, I'm gonna try to stay up for a little bit tonight, maybe get to the halfway point, or at least get about 200 pages in tonight, and then I will update you with more thoughts in the morning. Good morning, how's it going? So last night I read The Butcher and I got up to page 212, and this book
is just flying. Like, I don't know, I'm just loving it so much. I'm loving all the little different twists and turns along the way. I also like made a new tab for, you know, because there was a moment where she mentioned this spot in Washington that's like super familiar to me, and I was like, no way, that's so cool. And so I put a tab because it was somewhere that I recognized. And I don't know, I'm just really digging this. I feel like the writing in this book, like the writing itself probably isn't the best book that I've read by Jennifer Hillier, but I don't remember if this one's her debut or not. Either way, I'm loving the story, I'm loving the twists, I'm loving like despising these characters. The only character I actually like in this book is Sam and Samantha, and I'm freaking rooting for her to like find out the truth. But it's also kind of hard to read from her point of view because as the reader, we know who the butcher is. Like, we know the truth. And it's like hard because we know that she's so close to figuring it out. And it's just like you want those things for her, but it's almost like you're just waiting for her to catch up in a way. But I honestly don't mind it too much because reading from the point of view of the butcher is just so unsettling and like so creepy, and it makes me feel all gross and slimy. So yeah, anyways, I have to go grocery shopping this morning, but I'm hoping that I will get back as soon as possible because I'm dying to finish this book. And then I thought while I was on the way for grocery shopping and while I'm grocery shopping, I'm gonna start listening to The Party by Robin Harding. This is another thriller that I've been wanting to get to for such a long time, so I finally got the audiobook checked out from my library, and so I'm just gonna listen to that on audio this morning while going grocery shopping.
Affecting that bored, disdainful attitude so popular with teenagers these days. Maybe it should be avoided.
Okay, hi, I am back in bed and back from, you know, being out in the world today. And while I was at the grocery store and just driving around, I got 35% of the way into the audiobook of The Party by Robin Harding. I'm sad to say it, but I think this is gonna be a DNF for me because I am really not enjoying it and I just do not give a fuck to see where this book is going. I wanted to read this book, you know, because I wanted to be able to say that I've read all of Robin Harding's books, and this is actually, I'm pretty sure this one's her debut novel, but I went into this one with some pretty low expectations anyways, because I'm pretty sure this one averages like a 3.4 out of 5 on Goodreads, which is pretty low. And this book just follows this family where like this young girl's having her 16th birthday party, and then during the party something goes horribly wrong, and then it's kind of about the family dealing with the situation afterwards. And you know, the thing that goes horribly wrong at the 16th girl's birthday party, it happens pretty early on, you know, like we get it, like the scene happens in the first 100 pages, and then we just kind of spend the rest of this book just like gossiping and drama, and it's like these awful shitty people. There's not a single character that I like in this book, and usually with thrillers like I don't mind it, but it's like not only do I not like them, I also just don't care. And it's like I feel like we already got you know, the mystery resolved. And at least from what I see in a lot of Goodreads reviews, you know, because I was like looking through reviews, I was like, okay, is this actually worth reading? Like, does it get interesting towards the end? Like, I just wanted to know the tea. And a lot of people are saying like, oh, at the end you never even find out what actually happened at the party. And I'm like, okay, isn't that the whole point though? Because I thought the whole mystery element of this book is trying to figure out what actually happened at this party. Like, I thought there'd be more to it, but apparently there's not. And that's why this book is getting pretty low ratings, I guess, because it never fully resolves anything. So I feel like I just shouldn't even waste my time, to be honest. Like, I'm glad that I gave this book a shot, even though I had low expectations going in. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a DNF for me. Sadly, I don't want to waste my time on books that I'm not enjoying. And with that being said, I think I'm going to jump right back into The Butcher. I'm about exactly halfway through this book, so I don't imagine it'll take me too long to finish this book. And I have so many friends today doing reading sprints on like Patreon and just on YouTube, pretty much scheduled all throughout the day. So I'm like, okay, today is just gonna be a laying in bed and reading day while I'm watching my friends' reading sprints. Like, let's freaking go. Look at this beautiful bullet journal my sister just finished creating. If you didn't know, she has a bullet journal Etsy shop where she creates customized bullet journals. And this one is one that was specifically requested, so she doesn't have this exact one available, but she has so many others just like it. And it's so beautiful. Oh my god, this one that she just did, it was like a dark academia, kind of like vintage theme for this whole bullet journal, and it's just freaking stunning.
Like, it's absolutely stunning. I especially am a huge fan of the November spread. Look at this for November. Like, it's just so beautiful. The dark academia vibes are so strong. And like, oh my god. Like, I just can't believe the amount of work that she puts into these journals. Like, this thing is so thick, and this took her like 6 days to make. So my sister's incredible. If you want to check out her Etsy shop, it'll be linked down below. All right, hello. It has been a couple of hours. It is just after 5 o'clock and we're starting to get dinner ready, but I finished reading The Butcher, and I honestly think this is probably going to be like a 4.5 out of 5 for me. I don't think it's a perfect 5 just because I thought the ending was a tad bit unsatisfying, but like, gosh, I can't even tell you the last time that I read a 400-page book in like 2 sittings because I was so addicted to it. Like, it's been a while, you know, since I've been so addicted to a book, and I just think Jennifer Hillier's writing is so freaking incredible. I think something that's really unique about this book is the fact that we kind of find out who the butcher is pretty early on in this book, and we know right away. We get to read from his point of view and stuff, so there's no real element of surprise or like big plot twist towards the end of this book. There was one twist at the end that I didn't see coming for some reason, even though I felt like I should have seen that coming, but I didn't. So that was cool, but I feel like, I don't know, I can see why a lot of people might not enjoy this book because, you know, this isn't the kind of thriller that has like a ton of huge reveals or anything. It's just, it's so well written, it's so fast paced, it's so intense. All of these characters are just so fucked up, and it's almost like you're just kind of waiting for Sam, you know, the girl that's like writing the true crime book. I loved reading from her point of view, but at the same time I was just like waiting and wanting her to pick up on things. Like, I felt like she was being a little naive at times about things. And so that was the only aspect of this book that was like a little bit frustrating for me, but otherwise I loved it. Like, I loved it so much. I thought it was so intense. Reading about these gross ass men was like, ugh, it just made me feel so gross, but at the same time it was so fascinating. Also, I feel like I left out a crucial detail about Sam's character, and I was telling you about her because this isn't a spoiler, but not only is she a true crime writer, so she's writing a book about the butcher, but she has reason to believe that her own mom was murdered by the butcher, even though the butcher was technically killed, or the, you know, the person that they thought was the butcher was killed 2 years before her mom was murdered. But that's kind of why she's writing this book on the butcher specifically, because she has reason to believe that the butcher was the actual one to kill her own mom, and so that's kind of why, that's kind of how she's tied into it. I also really enjoyed it. There was actually a really good romance happening in this book that I was rooting for throughout the whole book, and so it was just a fun time. It was such a fun time. I just love Jennifer Hillier's writing, you know, like, I feel like it doesn't matter really what her books are about. They're just so entertaining. I just kept these pages flipping because I just wanted to know what was happening. And even though the ending I felt like was slightly unsatisfying, it's not going to, you know, ruin my enjoyment of this book overall or how I look back on this book, because I had such a fun time reading this, and it was so disturbing and dark and just like exactly what I needed right now. So yeah, anyways, now we're making meatballs, the same meatballs from, you know, HelloFresh, because we're all obsessed. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, dinner was so freaking good, but I am struggling because my throat freaking hurts, and I think my GERD is like acting up again, which, like, fan-fucking-tastic. That is just what I need right now. Also, I just got the most lovely, like, surprise book mail. Sometimes people will like send me things off my Amazon wishlist and I'm not expecting it at all, and it's honestly the most, like, it brings me so much joy when I get unexpected book mail from the kindest humans. And I just got 2 books in the mail from the lovely Jill Toole. Thank you so much for sending me these. Oh my gosh, look what she sent me. This first one is Yoke, which is a young adult contemporary book that's about sisters that I've had on my TBR for like literally so long, like such a long time. So I'm so excited to finally have this. And then she also sent Blood Sugar, which this is a thriller that I've heard really good things about and that I'm very excited to read. Like, I'm actually so excited to read this. I have the audiobook on hold in my library right now. So hopefully this will be one that I can also get to in August. Like, holy shit, thank you so much, Jill. That was seriously so generous and so kind of you, and I'm so excited to read both of these books. Ooh! It's almost gonna be 8 o'clock here pretty soon, and so I think we're going to watch Big Brother, because Big Brother's on tonight, and then I think I am gonna start the next book tonight. I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but I'm feeling like I'm in such a reading mood after I loved The Butcher so much, so I feel like I want to start on the next thing already, you know? I just want to keep the momentum flowing. Hello friends, so this vlog has taken a turn for the worst because
I tested positive for COVID yesterday, and I've just been feeling like shit lately. I've been feeling like I got hit by a bus and my brain feels like scrambled eggs, and it's just not been a very fun time, you know? But I did want to let you know that I finished reading The Damage. I feel like I really need to start, like, reading the description of thrillers before I pick them up, because honestly, if I had known this book was going to be about such heavy subject matter, I probably wouldn't have picked it up to read at this moment in time, like right now, because I basically picked this book up because it was getting highly recommended to me and a lot of people really thought that I would like it, so I was like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. And all I really knew was that it was going to be like a small town thriller, and that's all I knew. But what I did not realize was that this book was going to be dealing with this young boy named Nick, who has recently been raped. And so we follow many points of views in this book, you know. We follow not only Nick's point of view, we follow his brother Tony, we follow Julia's point of view, which is, Julia is Tony's wife, so like his sister-in-law basically. And then we also do follow the detective who's like, you know, trying to help represent him and working on his case. And this book was just, it was incredibly heavy, it was very dark. I do think, though, that this is an important subject matter that I do think should be represented more often in thrillers, which is, you know, male victims of rape. I think that that's something I don't think I've read about before, if I'm being honest, or at least not very often. And I think it's a really important subject matter that there should be more light shed on these kind of cases. But at the same time, I don't know if it was just because I wasn't in the right headspace to be reading this, but this book was just dark and heavy and sad. This book is also nearly 400 pages, and I just really struggled to get through this because I did not feel like there was a need for this book to be nearly 400 pages. Like, it just felt like it was so long. I also felt like, at least for me personally, like, I think calling this book a thriller is a bit of a stretch. Like, I don't really think that this feels like a thriller. This feels like seeing how awful the system is to rape victims and kind of seeing the trauma that rape victims have to go through again and again and again. And for me, it didn't really feel like a thriller until part 3 of this book, which, as you can see, is nearly like halfway through it. It's after like 200 pages deep into this book, but that's when things kind of started to pick up and started to feel, you know, kind of more like a thriller and more interesting. I was like, okay, where is this going? But I don't know, for me, this is probably gonna end up being like a 3-star, maybe like a 2.5, because I just didn't really connect with this story in the way that I wanted to. And there are some trigger warnings for, I mean, obviously things like sexual assault and rape, but like there's even more trigger warnings for things like, you know, self-harm and, you know, all these really dark things that it was just really hard for me to read this right now. You know, I'm not gonna lie, it was not a fun time. Okay, hello, hi. It's been a number of days since I last updated this vlog because I've been dealing with COVID for the last couple of days here and it sucked, but today's my 5th day. I'm finally feeling much better and back to normal, and I've started the next book for this video. I'm about 35% of the way into Mary right now, and this book has been very interesting so far. I didn't really know much about this book going into it, so I really had no idea what to expect, but something that I thought was cool from the author's note that's at the very beginning of this book, he kind of talks about how he was always really inspired by the book Carrie by Stephen King and how it was like a really huge part of his childhood and how him and his mom really bonded over that. And it's interesting because he said, what would happen if Carrie didn't have any special powers? Where would she be as a grown-up? Would she still have a story? And then he said he wanted to write that story of like what Carrie would be like as an older woman with no powers. And so he called the book Mary instead of Carrie, but it's like kind of a tribute to Carrie, which I just think is kind of, I don't know, I think it's really fucking cool if I'm being honest. I mean, the only thing that makes me nervous about this concept is that I'm not a huge fan of Carrie myself. Like, that book, Stephen King, it was a 2-star for me, so like I'm hoping that doesn't affect my enjoyment of this book because I didn't really realize it was going to, you know, be about or involve Carrie in any way. But at the same time, I feel like this story is just really unique so far and it's really weird. We're just following this woman named Mary as she's kind of dealing with, you know, these these feelings of like loneliness and like kind of getting to that point where she's like middle-aged, maybe starting to experience menopause. So it's almost kind of like the reverse of Carrie in a way, you know, because Carrie, it's like she's like getting her period and it's like all these hormonal like changes and things, but then this is almost like the flip of that, like later in life when she's going through menopause and starting on that journey. So it's almost a look at that time in life, which I think is a really cool thing. But I also think this is still so strange to me that both of these stories are written by men. You know, it just feels very odd. But I feel like with this one, I don't mind it as much. Like, I don't know, with this one, I really like the way that he's written this female lead character. Also, for starters, I did not expect this book to be as long as it is. Like, this is a 15-hour audiobook. I feel like I've been listening to it all day. I've been listening to it for 5.5 hours and I've barely made a dent. I'm only 35% of the way in, and I looked at the book on Goodreads and apparently it's over 400 pages. So like, hopefully there's a reason why the story needs to be this long, because usually I can't stand when books are just long for no reason. And so far it's definitely a slow burn. Like, this author is definitely taking the time to like introduce a lot of things and for things to happen, but at this point I'm invested enough that I'm really curious to see where it's going. I do think though that the first like 20% of this book or so was very slow. Like, literally nothing was happening, and it wasn't until after 20% of the way through the audiobook that things started to click into place of like, oh, okay, I can see a plot starting to form and I can see where this is going. But also just the first 20% I kept listening because it hooked me, because it was really weird. Like, this woman Mary just keeps having all these visions and she's like seeing things, and the visions were like freaking me out. Like, I think this is written in a way where like the horror is very descriptive and it's very like gory and like disgusting and bloody and like, you know, that kind of thing. So that's what gripped me in the first 20% of the book and made me like, wait, what the fuck? Like, I have to know what's going on. I don't know, I feel like the story, it's kind of unique and different. Like, I don't think I've ever read anything like this. And even though it's fucking long, I do think it's still too long of a story, but it's starting to get really interesting now. So now I'm invested, and now I gotta see where this shit's going, you know? Hello there, it's been about 24 hours since I last updated this vlog, but I wanted to let you know that I'm now 56% of the way through Mary. I always find it hard to update these vlogs, at least in the way that I usually do when I'm listening to audiobooks, because, you know, usually when I'm reading a book physically, you know, I can like include all the cute little montage footage of me actually reading it, but with an audiobook, I find it harder to like vlog my experience. But God, this book is just, oh, it's disgusting in some parts. Like, this book is just written in a way where like there are so many scenes that have to do with like bloody, like disgusting things, and the gore is just written so descriptively that I'm like, ugh. Look, I literally was eating last night when I was listening to some of this, and I was like, oh no, I was like skipping ahead some scenes because, oh my god, like what I was reading, I was like, I cannot do this. And then right now, today, I haven't been listening to it too much because I've been like filming and editing and getting some stuff done today, but I just jumped back in, and like the first scene I jumped back in and listened to, I'm like, ugh, disgusted by what I just listened to. Like, I'm just like, ugh, like I'm about to eat dinner soon in the next hour, and now my freaking appetite just like zapped out of my body. God, this writing is just very descriptive. Like, this horror is definitely horror if you're one of those people that likes reading horror because of like the descriptive bloody goriness of things. Then like, wow, this book, okay, it's just not super often, I guess, that I read stuff like this, but I'm still enjoying it, you know? I do think it's still kind of a slow burn. I mean, God, I still have nearly 7 hours left of this on audio, but the story is getting interesting, you know? It's a slow burn. It's definitely slow. I just hope it has a good payoff, you know, because if it's a good payoff, then I can still see myself giving this book like 4 stars. But if it's like a meh payoff, it'll probably be closer to like a 3, maybe even like a 2.5, depending on how mad I am about it. Made some mac and cheese. It's really good. Rachel literally went to the gas station just to get Coke.
What, and you guys don't do that?
Yeah, she's living that life.
I haven't had Coke this whole time because I was sick, okay?
I know, this is my first Sprite in like over a week because of COVID.
Don't judge me.
So now we're living it up, you know?
I live in a judgment-free household.
Exactly. I also made this beautiful Caesar salad. Isn't it beautiful? Mm-hmm. The key to a good Caesar is pine nuts in the Caesar.
Oh my god, it tastes so good.
Is it just life-changing?
Oh my god, it's so good. It tastes a little different since I can't smell anything. but it's still really good. Does anybody have that problem where you can only taste and not smell? I heard it's really rare.
I mean, I'm sure you're not the only one.
Because they normally come back together, you know?
Yeah.
I never lost my taste,
Mine
though.
was delayed.
So what the heck?
We'll see. Whoa! Mom just made a burger patty
Yeah.
with mac and
Talking
cheese.
about.
Hey, what's up? It's almost midnight. Nothing makes me happier in the world than the fact that it's raining right now. We've had a really, hot July and like hot couple of weeks recently, and it hasn't rained in a while, so now it's August, it's raining, and I'm happy. Anyways, I'm 66% of the way into this book, Mary, and I don't know if I like the direction this book is going in anymore. It's like, it's intriguing, but it's like not enough really to be holding my attention anymore. I don't know, like I feel like I'm just getting kind of bored. I'm just kind of ready for it to be over at this point, which is making me sad. So I feel like I'm going to try to listen to it a little bit more tonight, and then tomorrow I do have some Patreon reading sprints happening tomorrow, so hopefully I'll be able to finish it at some point tomorrow during the sprints. But tonight, me and my sister, we made this mac and cheese that was just so freaking good, and then we watched Big Brother, which I'm loving this season of Big Brother. I think it's a really good one, but also we've been watching F-Boy Island on HBO Max. We're still watching season 1 right now, but we've literally nearly finished this first season within like 2 days. We only have 3 episodes left. This show is so addicting, okay? This show is everything that I need in my life when it comes to trashy reality dating shows. I love it. I love it so much. So me and my mom and my sister have been absolutely hooked on that shit. So if I'm unproductive in the month of August, you can just blame F-Boy Island because I'm obsessed. Good morning. It's just after 10:30 in the morning right now, and I was up a little bit early today because my friend Meg over from Meg with Books, she asked me if I could be on her podcast for her Patreon, and so we were talking about books that we wish were more popular on booktube, which was really fun. Like, it's always so much fun to talk to Meg. And this morning I feel like my voice is almost like going out because I'm like coughing so much and because I was talking so much, but I wanted to let you know that last night I stayed up a little bit later than I thought I would because I got 87% of the way through this audiobook. At this point, like, I don't really know how I'm feeling about this book. I feel like this book, it's, it's creepy and it's gory, but I feel like this book is almost like trying to take on too many things. Like, there's just way too many things happening in this book, and I feel like this book, it's a really cool concept, but I feel like it would be so much better if this book was, like, half the length that it currently is, because I don't think there's any reason for this audiobook to be, like, 15 and a half hours long. I feel like this story would have been just as effective, if not even more effective, if it was half the size, because, there's just too much unnecessary detail about so many things and just like so many unnecessary moments throughout this book. And so I'm just like struggling with it, but I mean, I only have 2 hours left of the audiobook, so I'm definitely gonna finish it today while I'm on Patreon reading sprints. But at this point, I don't love it. So like, I'm not expecting to give this anything higher than a 3-star at this point. Last night I read this one scene that was so graphic and disturbing. It kind of reminded me of the movie Men. And all I can say is if you've seen the movie, then you probably know the nature of like what I'm talking about. But if you haven't seen it, then like, I'm sorry, but also I don't recommend watching the movie Men because I'm fucking traumatized. Like, literally so traumatized from that movie. Oh my god, the visuals, like, I will never get them out of my head. And then this book just kind of like re-triggered those visuals in my brain. Hello, hi, I'm currently on Patreon doing reading sprints, and I'm excited to let you know that I finally finished reading Mary, and this book was quite the story, and I feel like I still stand by what I was saying earlier, where I feel like this book had a really cool concept. I think it was trying to take on way too much though, and I think this book
would have been a lot better if it had been like 200 pages shorter. I still stand by that, but I will say I really did love the author's note at the end of this book. This author wrote like this afterword kind of explaining his writing process and like how he thought of this and why he felt like it was important for him to write it. And he actually addresses a question because, you know, after reading Carrie, I had the same question, like, what is a man doing writing a story about a girl going through puberty and, like, her period and everything? And then he writes this afterword, like, what's this asshole doing writing a book about menopause? Like, that's literally what the afterword is called. Yeah, you do ask those questions, like, why is this man writing about menopause and what makes him think he's qualified to write about something like this in the first place? But I actually really do like his take on it. I like what he had to say on it, and I appreciate that he put that at the end of the book because he said, you know, he doesn't really know if he has all the right answers, but he hopes that this is a conversation starter, you know, and that like sometimes like there are just stories that really speak to you and you feel like you need to tell them even though you might not be the perfect person to tell those stories, which, you know, I can respect that. Like, I don't know. I really respect the author's note at the end of this book. I think it was really well done. And I don't know. I mean, the concept of this book is really interesting, and hearing about, you know, how this book came to be is really interesting. He seems like a really, you know, smart and cool person, but I personally, for my taste, I feel like I can't give this higher than like a 2.5 out of 5 because I want to rate it higher because I enjoyed the concept. I think it's a really cool concept. I think the book itself was written in a way that was really interesting. Like, it was very dark and violent and graphic, and honestly some of the most disturbing, gory scenes that I've read in a horror book in a long time. So like, if you're here for that, then I think a lot of horror fans would really enjoy this book. But the reason why I have to rate it lower is because this book is just too damn long, okay? Like, and especially because we are inside Mary's head for the entire story. Like, I feel like if it was gonna be this long of a book, he could have broken it up with, like, some other point of views, maybe. Like, I don't know, just something a little bit different, because being inside Mary's head for the entire book was a little bit exhausting, to be honest. But also, like, there was just some imagery that's really gonna stick with me with this book, you know? Because as I'm saying, it's some of the most disturbing shit that I've read in a while, so, like, it definitely has that going for it. And I also do think that Mary is a very interesting character to follow in this book, and I do like the social commentary on, you know, like, midlife for women and how that kind of time period just isn't really talked about ever in books and media, and how menopause even still is such a thing that's not really known by like the average people because we don't talk about it enough as a society because it's something that women go through, and so nobody fucking cares, you know? Like, I really liked the commentary on like the struggles of dealing with midlife as a woman, and it was just really interesting. I don't know, but for me it's probably like a 2.5 out of 5 for my personal reading taste. I don't think this is one I would go around recommending necessarily, but it was also kind of a surprise, and I really do respect this author. I like the reasons that he chose to write the story, and I think it's a really cool concept. So I think for these next few sprints I'm gonna try to read Monster Volume 6. This is a manga thriller series that I'm currently reading, and after I finish Monster Volume 6 I'll probably jump into the next audiobook that I want to listen to for this vlog. It's been a minute since I've last updated this vlog because yesterday at the end of reading sprints I was trying to read What Moves the Dead, but then I only got about 2 chapters into that audiobook before I was like, yeah, I don't think this is the book for me. It was just reading a little bit more fantasy than I was anticipating, and I know the genre of that book is like fantasy horror, so I just don't think fantasy horror is like my particular favorite kind of horror, and I just think that author just might not be for me, you know, because that's the second time I've tried one
one of that author's books, and it just always ends up feeling a bit more fantasy and confusing than I typically enjoy, so I just don't think that's going to be the book for me. But this afternoon I only read the first chapter of Take It Back, and this is a thriller that I've been wanting to read for a really long time, actually. My friend Matt recommended me this book a really long time ago and said it was something that he thought I would really enjoy. And this is a thriller that I know is going to be like a hard-hitting thriller, because in this story we're following this woman named Zara who works at this sexual assault center, and she helps victims deal with their sexual assault. So like already you know that this is going to be a very intense topic, and a lot of her colleagues like wonder why she spends her time here, because she's like a really, really smart and educated woman, and they just think she could be doing so much more with her life and her career than working at this, you know, sexual assault center. But she really wants to help young girls. And one day this 16-year-old girl named Jody comes in, and she says that she's been raped by 4 Muslim boys. So I already know that this book is going to pack in a whole lot of really hard conversations and hard topics to read about, you know, because it's so conflicting for our protagonist, Zara, because she's Muslim herself, and so she's going to be the one taking on this case that could potentially harm her own community, you know? And, you know, just in that first chapter, like I've only read the first chapter, which was about 20 pages, and there's already so much like emotion in the writing, and I'm just like, holy shit, like I can tell that I'm gonna love this, but I can also tell that it's gonna be a lot. So I'm really excited to jump into this one and give it a go, even though I do think it's probably gonna be really tough subject matter, and it's like not an easy, fun, breezy read, but a really important read. And so I'm glad that I'm finally getting around to this one. I do have the audiobook from my library as well, so I'm gonna be listening to it on audio. And yeah, you might be wondering why I look all like, you know, dolled up, and it's because my sister helped me with my hair and makeup, because I'm gonna be going to a wedding here in about an hour, and I'm so excited. It's one of my closest friends in this world, Austin. He's getting married this afternoon, and so I'm so excited to, you know, go to his wedding, to be there to support him. I think it's gonna be really nice. It's like the perfect day out for a wedding today. It's only about 80 degrees, and it's kind of nice and breezy, and I'm gonna have to wear a dress, and yeah, it should be a really great time. I might include a little like montage of clips for this next bit, but if not, I'll see you when I get back tonight.
When I saw you over there, I wasn't sure. Now I'm feeling something I haven't before. Look at us, no dancing now, skin to skin. If you keep this up, then I'll let you in, 'cause you have a way with me like no one else. Yeah, you almost make me fall in love. Yeah, you got me hypnotized under your spell. I know I'll go home with you tonight. Oh, wanna get you closer to my body. Wanna feel your hands all over me. Gonna make
Hello, how's it going? I haven't updated you in like 24 hours. But yeah, the wedding was yesterday. It was really fun. I had such a great time getting the chance to catch up with so many friends that I haven't seen in a really long time. So that was wonderful. And I wanted to update you because for most of the day today, I've been listening to Take It Back on audio. And I wanted to do a quick update because I'm currently at 51% of the way through it. So I feel like I'm nearly halfway finished here. I've been using my little Namjoon bookmark in here, and it's just been making me like so happy every time I flip open the book. I got these from K-pop Greetings, by the way. I can link their Etsy down below. It's just like the cutest thing ever. I have one for all of the BTS members. But anyways, this book is, you know, it's definitely a crime thriller, which is something that I'm still trying to figure out when it comes to like thrillers, if crime thrillers are my personal favorite thing to read about, because I feel like sometimes they can read a little bit clinical when you're following from the point of view of somebody who's like a lawyer or somebody who's like, you know, involved in the court. And I feel like something that is really involved in this book, you know, it's all about this trial that's going on and this young girl who's, you know, accusing these 4 boys of rape. This book is actually reminding me a lot of a book that I just read earlier this month, which was The Damage. And with books like this, you really do have to be in the right headspace to read something like this, because they're both really heavy and they both have to deal with rape and like a really intense trial and, you know, seeing the victims and like what they're going through. And so I think both of these stories are really hard. I I think this story is especially unique because our protagonist herself is Muslim, and then the 4 boys getting accused of the rape are Muslim, and the girl that's claiming that she was raped is this disabled white girl. And so I feel like there's a lot of interesting commentary in this book, you know, about how the racism in this town is really coming out, you know, because people just want to be mad at brown people, but it's hard, you know. It's an interesting perspective to read from Zara's point of view. It's really hard, you know. Everything about this book is a really hard read. Like, there's nothing easy about it, and something that I wasn't really anticipating with reading this is that we would get the point of view of one of the boys named Amir. We kind of get his point of view and like what he's going through with his family, and so we kind of do get more backstory on the boys. It's showing kind of like how it's affecting his family, because he's claiming that nothing happened and that he would never do something like that, and that she just wants attention and she's always wanted him, and you know, this whole thing. So it's definitely an interesting book. It's thought-provoking, it raises a lot of questions, but it's also just such heavy subject matter, and so I wouldn't just go around recommending this, you know, very casually to people. I feel like this is definitely something you have to be in the right headspace for. But with that being said, I don't know if my personal thriller taste, if I enjoy thrillers that just revolve around like a court case trial kind of thing. I just find them to read a little bit clinical, if I'm being honest. Like, I just feel a little bit of a disconnect because they feel like they're written in a way that's so clinical, and I usually find that with crime thrillers. Like, sometimes I love crime thrillers, and then sometimes I feel this way where there's kind of like a disconnect, or I'm just wanting more. Like, I feel like with stories like this, I would probably enjoy this more if it was being told maybe from Jodie's point of view. But at the same time, like, I don't know, it's like, it's hard to talk about my issue with it just because the writing is good. I mean, the writing is really good, but it's just not my personal taste in a book, if that makes sense. Like, I felt the same exact way about this one, you know. These are books that I thought that I would really love, but to be honest, I don't really find joy in reading these things, and I don't think I'm supposed to. Like, I think that's the point, you know, is that they're supposed to be raising a lot of questions and making you feel uncomfortable and sad, but at the same time, it's just not something I really like reading about, you know. Like, at least not with not like other thrillers, because usually with thrillers, I'm just excited to read them. I'm here for the plot twist and all of the crazy shenanigans. But these feel very serious and very real, and it just kind of bums me out, to be honest. I think they're very important stories, but I just don't know if I love reading them, you know? That's how I'm feeling about it. But because I'm 50% of the way through, you know, I only have this tiny chunk left here, so I'm probably going to continue reading this throughout the rest of the night. We just ordered some burgers from a local restaurant because it's a Saturday night, so we're like, let's go. Hello, it is the next afternoon, and I'm here to let you know that I just finished listening to Take It Back on audio, and this was quite a journey, you know. I feel like the end of this book definitely started to feel more like a thriller to me, or at least like the thrillers that I typically read, and I think with this book, I've kind of discovered that I don't think crime thrillers are my personal favorite, especially crime thrillers that specifically revolve around rape trials. I just find them to be a little bit, you know, heavy and just a little bit too much for me, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't know, they're just not my favorite. But with that being said, I think this book is incredibly well written, and I think if you are the kind of person that enjoys crime thrillers, I think this has got to be like one of the best. Like, I can definitely recognize that this book is really important and that it's doing something so much bigger for the community than like most of the thrillers that I read. And the ending was surprising for me, you know, like the ending was starting to go in a direction where I was like, wait, hold the fuck up, hold the phone, let's go back a second. But then there was like a reveal at the end that I was just like, oh my god, like wow, whoa, what? And so it definitely captured my full attention at the end and made me like really invested in, like, I couldn't couldn't even do anything else while I was listening to like the last 50 pages or so because I was like just so invested in listening to what was going to happen. So, you know, this book definitely has that going for it. I think this book is really good. It's probably a 4-star for me personally, but I can see why a lot of people are really, really loving this one, really connecting with this, and highly recommending it as one of their favorite books. Like, I definitely understand it. I definitely see it. I just don't know. Like, it's hard for me to think of any crime books specifically off the top of my head that I've personally like loved enough to give like 5 stars. I don't know that there are that many. I guess when it comes to thrillers, I'm more interested in like the psychological thrillers. I'm more interested in like, you know, I don't know, kind of like the over-the-top ridiculous kind of like rich people drama thrillers. Like those tend to be more of my thing, but whereas like sometimes crime thrillers can feel a little bit too heavy and a little bit too clinical of like a writing style for my personal taste. So, you know, I'm learning something about my thriller taste with reading some of these books, so that's a good thing. But yeah, if you have read Take It Back, I would love to know your thoughts on it because I do think it's a really powerful story and I do think it promotes a lot of really interesting discussion, and so that's always something that I also really love when reading a book. But yeah, I think that just about wraps up this thriller horror kind of reading vlog. I feel like this reading vlog ended up being so incredibly random, so I'm sorry about that. I had a little bit more of a plan before I got COVID, and then after, like, since I've gotten COVID, it's just been really hard for me to, you know, actually sit down and focus and read a book, so I've just been relying so heavily on the audiobooks recently. But I'm glad that I was finally able to get to, you know, a few thrillers in this video that I've had on my TBR for years now, you know, like reading Take It Back and The Butcher. Those are 2 books that I've had on my TBR for such a long time, and then also to get to a new release horror like Mary was also really cool. I'm hoping to read, you know, some more horror books a little bit later this month. I'm planning on doing a, you know, like a 48-hour novella, horror novella reading vlog very soon here in the next couple of days, so you can expect that probably as my next reading vlog, and I'm really looking forward to it because I think it's gonna be so fun, and hopefully I can find some new favorite horror novellas because I'm reading quite a few. But yeah, thank you so much for watching as always, and if you have read any of these books, let me know what your thoughts are on them and what you think about them, or if you're planning to read any of these books now, also let me know. And thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye.